Hi, everybody. I wanted to come on here to share my labor and delivery story. First, my birthing plan was to have a vaginal birth. I was thinking, like, maybe my water will break, and then I'll just go to the hospital, or I'll like have contractions, and then I'll eventually, go to the hospital like normal and have the baby and room in with the baby, stay in the hospital for a couple of days, and then boom, like we home, we good. Well, no, like it didn't happen that way. Um, my baby was supposed to be due June 9th. I ended up having her in May 17th. So I was about 30, I had her at 36 weeks, 6 days. Um, I it all started when I went in for my regular checkup. I was about 35 weeks, 34 weeks. Um, and I went in for my regular checkup. She checked me and she was telling me that I was kind of measuring a couple weeks behind, about a week or two behind what I should have been. So she was kind of concerned about the baby's growth. So she set me up to do a growth scan. So I had that appointment on a Friday. So it was like supposed to be like an in and out type of thing. So I had took off of work to make it to the appointment. My appointment was about 9 or 10ish. Got there to the appointment, and the people were kind of behind about 45 to an hour. So I was hungry. So since it was supposed to be like a regular checkup and then out of there, like me and my husband had plans. We were supposed to do date night that night. Like we were just, it was just like a regular day. So I was hungry. So my appointment was going to be like an hour behind. So I just went up the road and had some breakfast at like a little restaurant, like literally sat down and ate and having a good old time. So went back in, had my growth scan. She did my growth scan, and she's typing on the computer, and she like immediately like just hops up and like leaves out the room. And normally, like people would say something like "I'll be back" or whatever. Like she barely said anything. So I was kind of like, "What's going on?" So she comes back and she's like, "Hey, can you come to the doctor's office real quick? Just sit in there and wait for the doctor." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah." So I go wait in the doctor's office. And at this point, like my anxiety level is like super, super high. Like I'm like trying to figure out what the heck is wrong. So she comes back in like less than 5 minutes later, and she's like, "Hey, can you come into the I'm gonna put you in the room over here, like with the doctors." And I'm like, "Okay, all right, what?" So I go in the room, and they're talking with me and saying like what they found on the growth scan, and saying that yeah, like the baby is measuring behind, about a week or two behind. And they were like concerned about that, and then they were concerned about like swelling that I had in my legs. And I'm like, I mean, I've been had swelling in my legs. Like it's fine. Like the doctor knows about it, and like that was it. And so they were just kind of like hinting at me being preeclamptic. And then I'm like, I'm not preeclamptic. And I mean, yeah, my blood pressure has been high. But then at this doctor's appointment, it's like super, super high. So they check my blood pressure. The doctor is like he's an intern. He's trying to like get my blood pressure. He can't read it. And so he takes it about 2 times and he doesn't say anything to me. So I'm like, you have to tell me something. Like, what is it? What is it? And he's like, I can't really get it. I can't really, it's high, but I can't really read it. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's high. Like, I can feel it. It's high. And so he kind of comes in closer to me and trying to figure out this blood pressure. And he tells me, like, it's basically like 100 over 100 something. And so he's like asking me all these questions, saying, if I'm preeclamptic or if I had any other preeclamptic symptoms, in which I didn't. And, well, I had the swelling and then just the high blood pressure. So I'm like, the high blood pressure is probably from my anxiety right now because you guys are like barely telling me much right now. So the regular doctor comes in and she just gives me like an update on what they found and basically saying that the baby is measuring below, behind, and my blood pressure is really, really high right now, and like that's not supposed to happen. So she was like, hey, like I just talked to your doctor. He said that he's gonna meet you at the hospital. You need to go there now. And she was like, you're probably gonna have your baby, if not today, then definitely by Sunday. So at this point, I'm like, what? So I am like freaking out in my head because I'm there alone. And you're telling me I have to go to the hospital to have my baby. Like, I'm not prepared for this mentally. Like, this is supposed to be an in and out thing. And nothing was happening. So I leave out the doctor's office and I'm like getting in my car and thinking that I could just drive down the road. But at this point, I'm like crying, trying to figure out who can I call. So I call my husband. Of course, he doesn't answer. I call my mom, no answer. And called my sister-in-law, no answer. Every time when you need somebody, like literally nobody answers the phone when you actually need them. So I'm like freaking out in the car and I'm like, okay, well, let me just get to the hospital. Let me get to the hospital. I'm like, wait, I can't get to the hospital because I can't even see. Like, I'm crying. Like, I can't figure it out. So I text my mom texts me and she's like, hey, like I'm in a meeting. And I'm like, text her back like I have to have the baby now. And so then that's when she calls me back and she's like, I tell her like, meet me at the hospital. And I can't get in touch with my husband, like call him too. So eventually, I get in contact with everybody and I'm heading to the hospital. And by this time, I get there at maybe like 12-ish, a little bit after 12. And so the doctor was like already there waiting. I get there and I'm like triage in a little triage room where they hook you up and monitor you. And they're getting my blood pressure. My blood pressure is like super, super high. At this point, I have like a headache. I'm like freaking out. And it's like everything is like happening super, super quick. So the doctor comes in and he's like, Darcy. I'm like, hey. And he opens the curtain and he's like, and he glances at the blood pressure monitor readings and he's like, oh yeah, and yells out to the nurses, hey, yeah, can we get a bed? We're gonna need a bed today. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, we're gonna have this baby like now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what do you mean now? And he comes and sit down and talks and stuff about the baby and whatever. And I just explained to him that I really would like to have this baby vaginally, as much as I can. Like I was like, I don't want a C-section. Like that was my biggest fear, being pregnant, period. Like I always said, like I don't want to be cut open. So he was like, okay, like I understand. Like we're gonna try our best to do, you know, what we can do. So then he leaves and trying to get me to get a labor and delivery room. And that's when they're just, hooking my stuff up, trying to get IVs and trying to get blood and all of that type of stuff. And then I have a contraction while I'm in the waiting room. And he comes back, and then he's like explaining and stuff to me again. And he's like, yeah, you had a contraction while I was out there. And I looked at it. He was like, it, and her heart rate dipped down, and me having my blood pressure so high and uncontrolled right now, like, he was like, I don't think that it's best for you to have her vaginally right now. So I was disappointed, but I knew that I had to do what I had to do for my baby and my health. So at that point, I was able to get a regular bed, and they were just prepping me to do a C-section. So at this point, my husband came in, and he's all looking like distraught, like, oh my gosh, like like, you was supposed to just go and do the growth scan, Darcy. Like, why are we here at the hospital? I'm like, I don't know. So, yeah, he gets there, everybody's there, my mom and my husband, and basically they prepped me to do the C-section. I was scared, pretty scared. Basically, they rolled me back there, and it was a process. So that part went well. She came out. Then there was a NICU doctor there too, and he showed me her, but he was like, yeah, like, she's coming with me. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what? Like, and he was like, yep, she's gonna be in the NICU for about a couple weeks. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that was like devastating to me to hear. But she came out, she was about 4 pounds 2 ounces, and that was like around 4 o'clock that I had her. I was still like mentally, like, just mentally, like, my head didn't really fully grasp everything that like happened, because it happened so quick, and it was just like an out of body experience. Like, I couldn't control anything, but I knew that I had to do what was best for both of us. So yeah, so I ended up going back to labor and delivery. My blood pressure was still super, super high. Just still trying to manage that during that time. And she was in the NICU. I couldn't really see her right away because I couldn't walk. So they had like rolled me to the NICU a few times to go see her. But other than that, she was fine. She was perfect. Just had to keep feeding her so she can gain weight and try to get out of there. But that was it. Like, she was developed perfect. It was just me. I was the jacked up one, I guess. Still trying to manage my blood pressure for a few days while I was in there. And basically, my doctor said that it wasn't preeclampsia, but it was gestational hypertension. So I still deal with it. It never really went away, but yeah, I say for mothers, new mothers out there, or pregnant, becoming mothers, just to listen to your body, and it's good to have a plan, a birthing plan, but also don't be so hooked on that plan, like, and just be open-minded, because anything can happen. And to have like a second backup, to know that it might not go as what you want it to go, but just have an open mind. Because me, I just always thought that I was not going to get cut open, and I was not going to have no C-section. But yeah, it did happen. So yeah, I just wanted to share my experience with that. I know a lot of people didn't know that I even had a C-section, but that's why I like to share my experience now. And I wanted to share my experience before Nuri turns 1 year old, because she's 10 months now, and I've been waiting to do this video for a while. But yes, thanks for listening. Bye.